Should we talk about last time?
Yeah, I think so, because it's been a hot minute.
I know. Last time, Jon Snow learned that he was being a stinker.
Yes, he was.
And the Master-at-Arms told him to stop being a stinker, that he's being mean to all the people who are his brothers, and he needs to learn to embrace them.
Mm-hmm.
And
who was the Master-at-Arms? Starts with a T. I can't remember his name now.
And
I want to say...
I'm going to find it. I'm in the...
I don't even want to say his name. It's a spoiler for later on, so we'll see it.
Noi.
There we go.
Noi. Yeah.
Noi.
And then...
Sounds like when Ramona used to say no way.
Noi. And then Lord Commander Mormont told Jon that Bran woke up, but he is a cripple.
Mm-hmm.
To which he then rejoiced, and then Tyrion seemed like, what? Oh, he woke up? Oh.
Uh-oh.
Because we remember Catelyn is convinced that Tyrion is the one who... Or... Is she convinced that it's Tyrion, or is she just convinced that it's the Lannisters in general?
She's convinced it's Tyrion.
Yeah.
Because remember, Peter Baelish told her that it was his knife.
That's right.
Well, it was Peter's knife, and then...
Tyrion won it.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's pretty convincing that Tyrion was involved in some way.
Right.
We know he didn't push him, but...
So then, bolstered by this news, Jon walks over to the kids he was bullying, pretty much, and was like, yo, I hope your wrist is feeling better. I can help you learn how to block that next time. And then Alistair Thorne was all like, oh, what, you're going to teach everybody now? And Jon Snow pretty much backsassed him.
Yeah.
Big time.
Basically told him, like, yeah, I am. Got a problem with it?
Pretty
much. Go
much.
teach my dog to juggle.
Right.
Bitch.
And, yeah, Katie's right, I think. Well, is she right? Is she not right? It's a good notion. Would Tyrion be that stupid to use his own knife? Tyrion has demonstrated himself. Lola
Trouble in Paradise on the Iron Throne.
No shit over here. Did you see how? But Tyrion has demonstrated himself to be very smart in a lot of ways. So it would seem
not just smart, but wise.
Right. He gives Jon some really solid, good advice. You know, take what they used to hurt you with and wear it as your armor. Like, that's wise talk. To then turn around and do something stupid like, here, use my knife to kill Bran Stark. Like, you can neither confirm nor yes, like your theory. I will neither confirm nor deny your theory.
Correct.
That was pretty much the chapter. It was actually a pretty good chapter. I enjoyed that one.
Oh yeah, it was a great chapter.
It was a good one. Did you like it, Bailey? Eddard. Eddard Stark rode through the towering bronze doors of the Red Keep, tired, hungry, and irritable. He was still a horse, dreaming of a hot, long soak, a roast fowl, and a feather bed, when the king's steward told him that Grand Maester Pycelle had convened an urgent meeting at the small council. The honour of the hand's presence was requested as soon as it was convenient. "It will be convenient on the morrow," Ned snapped as he dismounted. The steward bowed very low. "I shall give the council your regrets, my lord." "No, damn it," Ned said. It would not do to offend the council before he'd even begun. "I will see them. Pray, give me a few moments to change into something more presentable." "Yes, my lord," the steward said. "We've given you Lord Aaron's former chambers in the Tower of the Hand. If it please you, I shall have your things taken there." "My thanks," Ned said as he ripped off his riding gloves and tucked them into his belt. The rest of his household were coming through the gate behind him. Ned saw Veon Poole, his own steward, and called out, "It seems the council has urgent need of me. See that my daughters find their bedchambers, and tell Jory to keep them there. Arya's not to go exploring." Poole bowed. Ned turned back to the royal steward. "My wagons are still struggling through the city. I shall need appropriate garments." "It will be my great pleasure," the steward said. And so Ned had come striding into the council chambers, bone-tired and dressed in borrowed clothing, to find 4 members of the small council waiting for him. The chamber was richly furnished. Moorish carpets covered the floor instead of rushes, and in one corner 100 fabulous beasts cavorted in bright paints on a carved screen from the Summer Isles. The walls were hung with tapestries from Norvos and Kohar and Lys, and a pair of Valyrian sphinxes flanked the door, eyes of polished garnet smouldering in black marble faces. The councillor Ned liked least, the eunuch Varys, accosted him the moment he entered. "Lord Stark, I was grievous sad to hear about your troubles on the King's Road. We've all been visiting the Sept like candles for Prince Joffrey. I pray for his recovery." His hand left powder stains on Ned's sleeve, and he smelled as foul and sweet as flowers on a grave. "Your gods have heard you," Ned replied, cool yet polite. "The prince grows stronger every day." He disentangled himself from the eunuch's grip and crossed the room to where Lord Renly stood by the screen, talking quietly with a short man who could only be Littlefinger. Renly had been a boy of 8 when Robert had won the throne, but he'd grown into a man so like his brother that Ned had found it disconcerting. Whenever he saw him, it was as if the years had slipped away and Robert stood before him, fresh from his victory on the Trident. "I see you have arrived safely, Lord Stark," Renly said. "And you as well," Ned replied. "You must forgive me, but sometimes you look the very image of your brother Robert." "A poor copy," Renly said with a shrug. "Though much better dressed," Littlefinger quipped. "Lord Renly spends more time on clothing than half the ladies of the court." It was true enough. Lord Renly was in dark green velvet with a dozen golden stags embroidered on his doublet. A cloth of gold half-cape was draped casually across one shoulder, fastened with an emerald brooch. "There are worse crimes," Renly said with a laugh. "The way you dress, for one." Littlefinger ignored the jab. He eyed Ned with a smile on his lips that bordered on insolence. "I have hoped to meet you for some years, Lord Stark. No doubt Lady Catelyn has mentioned me to you." "She has," Ned replied with a chill in his voice. The sly arrogance of the comment rankled him. "I understand you knew my brother Brandon as well." Renly Baratheon laughed. Varys shuffled over to listen. "Rather too well," Littlefinger said. "I still carry a token of his esteem. Did Brandon speak of me too?" "Often, and with some heat," Ned said, hoping that would end it. He had no patience with this game they played, this duelling with words. "I should have thought that heat ill suits you, Starks," Littlefinger said. "Here in the south they say you are all made of ice, and melt when you ride below the neck." "I do not plan on melting soon, Lord Baelish. You may count on it." Ned moved to the council table and said, "Maester Pycelle, I trust you are well." The Grand Maester smiled genially from the tall chair at the foot of the table. "Well enough for a man of my years, my lord," he replied. "Yet I do tire easily, I fear." Wispy strands of white hair fringed the broad, bald dome of this forehead above a kindly face. His maester's collar was no simple metal choker which Lewin wore, but 24 heavy chains wound together in a ponderous metal necklace that covered him from throat to breast. The links were forged of every metal known to man: black iron and red gold, bright copper and dull lead, steel and tin and pale silver, brass and bronze and platinum. Garnets and amethysts and black pearls adorned the metalwork, and here and there an emerald or a ruby. "Perhaps we might begin soon," the Grand Maester said, hands knitted together atop his broad stomach. "I fear I shall sleep as well if we wait too long." "If you will." The king's seat sat empty at the head of the table, the crowned stag of Baratheon embroidered on gold thread on its pillows. Ned took the chair beside it as the right hand of his king. "My lords," he said formally, I am sorry to have kept you waiting." "You are the king's hand," Varys said. "We serve at your pleasure, Lord Stark." As the others took their accustomed seats, it struck Eddard Stark forcefully that he did not belong here, in this room, with these men. He remembered what Robert had told him in the crypts below Winterfell. "I am surrounded by flatterers and fools," the king had insisted. Ned looked down the council table and wondered which ones were the flatterers and which the fools. He thought he already knew. "We are but 5, he pointed out. "Lord Stannis took himself to Dragonstone not long after the king went north," Varys said. "And our gallant Sir Barristan no doubt rides beside the king as he makes his way through the city, as befits the Lord Commander of the King's Guard." "Perhaps we ought to just wait for Sir Barristan and the king to join us," Ned suggested. Renly Baratheon laughed aloud. "If we wait for my brother to grace us with his royal presence, it could be a long wait." "Our good King Robert has many cares," Varys said. "He entrusts some small matters to us, to lighten his load." "What Lord Varys means is that all this business of coin and crops and justice bores my royal brother to tears," Lord Renly said. "So it falls on us to govern the realm. He does send us a command from time to time." He drew a tightly rolled paper from his sleeve and laid it on the table. "This morning he commanded me to ride ahead with all haste and ask Grand Maester Pycelle to convene this council at once. He has an urgent task for us." Littlefinger smiled and handed the paper to Ned. It bore the royal seal. Ned broke the wax with his thumb and flattened the letter to consider the king's urgent command, reading the words with mounting disbelief. Was there no end to Robert's folly? And to do this in his name? That was the salt to the wound. "Gods be good," he swore. "What Lord Eddard means to say," Lord Renly announced, "is that his grace instructs us to stage a great tournament in honour of his appointment as the hand of the king." "How much?" asked Littlefinger mildly. Ned read the answer off the letter. 40,000 golden dragons to the champion, 20,000 to the man who comes second, another 20,000 to the winner of the melee, and 10,000 to the victor of the archery competition. 90,000 gold pieces, Littlefinger sighed. "And we must not neglect the other costs. Robert will want a prodigious feast. That means cooks, carpenters, serving girls, singers, jugglers, fools." "Fools we have in plenty," Lord Renly said. Grandmaster Pycelle looked at Littlefinger and said, "Will the treasury bear the expense?" "What treasury is that?" Littlefinger replied with a twist of his mouth. "Spare me the foolishness, maester. You know as well as I that the treasury has been empty for years. I shall have to borrow the money. No doubt the Lannisters will be accommodating. We owe Lord Tywin some 3,000,000 dragons at present. What matter another 100,000? Ned was stunned. "Are you claiming that the crown is 3,000,000 gold pieces in debt?" "The crown is more than 6,000,000 gold pieces in debt, Lord Stark. The Lannisters are the biggest part of it, but we have also borrowed from Lord Tyrell, the Iron Bank of Bravos, and several Tyroshi trading cartels. Of late I've had to turn to the faith. The High Septon haggles worse than a Dornish fishmonger." Ned was aghast. "Aerys Targaryen left a treasury flow full with gold. How could you let this happen?" Littlefinger gave a shrug. "The Master of Coin finds the money. The king and the hand spend it." "I will not believe that Jon Arryn allowed Robert to beggar the realm," Ned said hotly. Grand Maester Pycelle shook his great bald head, his chains clinking softly. "Lord Arryn was a prudent man, but I fear that his grace does not always listen to wise counsel." "My royal brother loves tournaments and feasts," Renly Baratheon said, "and he loathes what he calls counting coppers." "I will speak with his grace," Ned said. "This tourney is an extravagance the realm cannot afford." "Speak to him as you will," Lord Renly said. "We'd still best make our plans." "Another day," Ned said, perhaps too sharply from the looks that they gave him. He would have to remember that he was no longer in Winterfell, while only the king stood higher. Here he was but first among equals. "Forgive me, my lords," he said in a softer tone. "I'm tired. Let us call a halt for today and resume when we are fresher." He did not ask for their consent, but stood abruptly, nodded at all of them, and made for the door. Outside, wagons and riders were still pouring through the castle gates, and the yard was a chaos of mud and horseflesh and shouting men. The king had not yet arrived, he was told. Since the ugliness on the Trident, the Starks and their household had ridden well ahead of the main column, the better to separate themselves from the Lannisters and the growing tension. Robert had hardly been seen. The talk was that he was travelling in the huge wheelhouse, drunk as often as not. If so, he might be hours behind, but he would still be here too soon for Ned's liking. He'd only to look at Sansa's face to feel the rage twisting inside him once again. The last fortnight of their journey had been a misery. Sansa blamed Arya and told her that it should have been Nymeria who died, and Arya was lost after she heard what happened to her butcher's boy. Sansa cried herself to sleep, Arya brooded silently all day long, and Eddard Stark dreamed of a frozen hell reserved for the Starks of Winterfell. He crossed the outer yard, passed under a portcullis into the inner bailey, and was walking toward what he thought was the Tower of the Hand when Littlefinger appeared in front of him. "You're going the wrong way, Stark. Come with me." Hesitantly, Ned followed. Littlefinger led him into a tower, down a stair, across a small sunken courtyard, and along a deserted corridor where empty suits of armour stood sentinel among the walls. They were relics of the Targaryens, black steel with dragon scales cresting their helms, now dusty and forgotten. "This is not the way to my chambers," Ned said. "Did I say it was? I am leading you to the dungeons to slit your throat and seal your corpse behind a wall," Littlefinger replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "We have no time for this, Stark. Your wife awaits." "What game are you playing, Littlefinger? Catelyn is at Winterfell, hundreds of leagues from here." "Oh?" Littlefinger's grey-green eyes glittered wide with amusement. "Then it appears someone has managed an astonishing impersonation, for the first time. Come. Or don't come, and I'll keep her for myself." He hurried down the steps. Ned followed him warily, wondering if this day would ever end. He had no taste for these intrigues, but he was beginning to realize that they were meat and mead to a man like Littlefinger. At the foot of the steps was a heavy door of oak and iron. Peter Baelish lifted the crossbar and gestured Ned through. They stepped out into the ruddy glow of dusk on a rocky bluff high above the river. "We're outside the castle." "You're a hard man to fool, Stark," Littlefinger said with a smirk. "Was it the sun that gave it away, or the sky? Follow me. There are niches cut out in the rock. Try not to fall to your death. Catelyn would never understand." With that, he was over the side of the cliff, descending as quick as a monkey. Ned studied the rocky face of the bluff for a moment, then followed more slowly. The niches were there, as Littlefinger had promised, shallow cuts that would be invisible from below, unless you knew just where to look. The river was a long, dizzying distance below. Ned kept his face pressed to the rock and tried not to look down any more often than he had to. When at last he reached the bottom, a narrow, muddy trail along the water's edge, Littlefinger was lazing against the rock and eating an apple. He was almost down to the core. "You're growing old and slow, Stark," he said, flipping the apple casually into the rushing water. "No matter, we ride the rest of the way." He had 2 horses waiting. Ned mounted up and trotted beside him down the trail and into the city. Finally, Baelish drew rein in front of a ramshackle building, 3 stories, timbered, its windows bright with lamplight in the gathering dusk. The sounds of music and raucous laughter drifted out and floated over the water. Beside the door swung an ornate oil lamp on a heavy chain with a globe of leaded red glass. Ned Stark dismounted in a fury. "A brothel," he said as he seized Littlefinger by the shoulder and spun him round. "You've brought me all this way to take me to a brothel?" "Your wife is inside," Littlefinger said. It was the final insult. "Brandon was too kind to you," Ned said as he slammed the small man against a wall and shoved his dagger up under the little pointed chin-beard. "My lord, no!" an injured voice called out. "He speaks the truth!" There were footsteps behind him. Ned spun, knife in hand, as an old white-haired man hurried toward him. He was dressed in brown, rough spun, and the soft flesh under his chin wobbled as he ran. "This is no business of yours," Ned began. Then, suddenly, the recognition came. He lowered the dagger, astonished. "Sir Roderick?" Roderick Castle nodded. "Your lady awaits you upstairs." Ned was lost. "Catelyn is truly here? This is not some strange jape of Littlefinger's?" He sheathed his blade. "Would that it were, Stark," Littlefinger said. "Follow me and try to look a shade more lecherous and a shade less like the king's hand. It would not do to have you recognized. Perhaps you could fondle a breast or two, just in passing." Then they went inside, through a crowded common room where a fat woman was singing bawdy songs while pretty young girls in linen shifts and wisps of coloured silk pressed themselves against their lovers and dandled on their laps. No one paid Ned the slightest bit of attention, so Roderick waited below while Littlefinger led him up to the third floor along a corridor and through a door. Inside, Catelyn was waiting. She cried out when she saw him, ran to him and embraced him fiercely. "My lady," Ned whispered in wonderment. "Oh, very good," said Littlefinger, closing the door. "You recognized her." "I feared you'd never come, my lord," she whispered against his chest. "Peter has been bringing me reports. He told me of your troubles with Arya and the young prince. How are my girls?" "Both in mourning and full of anger," he told them. "Cat, I don't understand. What are you doing in King's Landing? What happened?" Ned asked his wife. "Is it Bran? Is he—" Dead was the word that came to his lips, but he could not say it. "It is Bran, but not as you think," Catelyn said. Ned was lost. "Then how? Why are you here, my love? What is this place?" "Just what it appears," Littlefinger said, easing himself into a window seat. "A brothel. Can you truly think of a less likely place to find a Catelyn Tully?" He smiled. "As it chances, I own this particular establishment, so arrangements were easily made. I am most anxious to keep the Lannisters from learning that Cat is here in King's Landing." "Why?" Ned asked. He saw her hands then, the awkward way she held them, the raw red scars, the stiffness of the last two fingers on her left. "You've been hurt." He took her hands in his own, turned them over. "Gods! Those are deep cuts. A gash from a sword. How did this happen, my lady?" Catelyn slid a dagger from under her cloak and placed it in his hand. "This blade was sent to open up Bran's throat and spill his life's blood." Ned's head jerked up. "But who would—" She put a finger to his lips. "Let me tell it all, my love. It'll go faster that way. Listen." So he listened, and she told it all, from the fire in the library tower to Varys and the guardsmen and Littlefinger, and when she was done, Eddard Stark sat dazed beside the table, the dagger in his hand. Bran's wolf had saved the boy's life, he thought dully. What was it that Jon had said when they found the pups in the snow? "Your children were meant to have these pups, my lord." And he had killed Sansa's. And for what? Was it guilt he was feeling? Or fear? If the gods had sent these wolves, what folly had he done? Painfully, Ned forced his thoughts back to the dagger and what it meant. "The imp's dagger," he repeated. It made no sense. His hand curled round the smooth dragon bone hilt, and he slammed the blade onto the table, felt it bite into the wood. It stood mocking him. "Why should Tyrion Lannister want Bran dead? The boy'd never done him any harm." "Do you Starks have naught but snow between your ears?" Littlefinger asked. "The imp would never have acted alone." Ned rose and paced the length of the room. "If the Queen had a role in this, or, gods forbid, the King himself— No, I will not believe that." Yet even as he said the words, he remembered that chill morning on the Barrowlands and Robert's talk of sending hired knives after the Targaryen princess. He remembered Rhaegar's infant son, the red ruin of his skull, and the way the king had turned away, as he had turned away in Darry's audience hall not so long ago. He could still hear Sansa's pleading as Lyanna had pleaded once. "Most likely the king did not know," Littlefinger said. "It would not be the first time. Our good Lord Robert is practised at closing his eyes to things he'd rather not see." Ned had no reply for that. The face of the butcher's boy swam up before his eyes, cloven almost in two, and afterward the king had not said a word. His head was pounding. Littlefinger sauntered over to the table, wrenched the knife from the wood. The accusation is treason either way. Accuse the king and you will dance with ill and pain before the words are out of your mouth. The queen, if you can find the proof, and if you can make Robert listen, then perhaps—"
"We have proof," Ned said. "We have the dagger."
"This?"
Littlefinger flipped the knife casually end over end.
"A sweet piece of steel, but it cuts two ways, my lord. The imp will no doubt swear the blade was lost or stolen while he was at Winterfell, and with his hireling dead, who is there to give him the lie?"
He tossed the knife lightly to Ned.
"My counsel is to drop that in the river and forget that it was ever forged."
Ned regarded him coldly. "Lord Baelish, I am a Stark of Winterfell. My son lies crippled, perhaps dying. He would be dead and Catelyn with him but for a wolf pup we found in the snow. If you truly believe I would forget that, you are as big a fool now as when you took up sword against my brother."
"A fool I may be, Stark. Yet I'm still here while your brother has been moulding in the frozen grave for some 14 years now. You are not so eager to moulder beside him, far be it from me to dissuade you, but I'd rather not be included in the party. Thank you very much."
"You would be the last man I would willingly include in any party, Lord Baelish."
"You wound me deeply." Littlefinger placed a hand over his heart. "For my part, I've always found you Starks a tiresome lot, but Cat seems to have become attached to you, for reasons that I cannot completely comprehend. I shall try to keep you alive for her sake. A fool's task, admittedly, but I could never refuse your wife anything." "I told Peter our suspicions about John Arryn's death," Catelyn said. "He has promised to help you find the truth."
That was not news that Eddard Stark welcomed, but it was true enough that they needed help, and Littlefinger had been almost a brother to Cat once. It could not be the first time that Ned had been forced to... It would not be the first time that Ned had been forced to make common cause with a man he despised. "Very well," he said, thrusting the dagger into his belt. "You spoke of Varys. Does the eunuch know all of it?"
"Not from my lips," Catelyn said. "You did not wed a fool, Eddard Stark, but Varys has ways of learning things that no man could know. He has some dark art, Ned, I swear it."
"He has spies, that is well known," Ned said, dismissive.
"It's more than that," Cat insisted. "Sir Roderick spoke to Sir Aaron Santagar in all secrecy, yet somehow the spider knew of their conversation. I fear that man."
Littlefinger smiled.
"Leave Lord Varys to me, sweet lady. If you will permit me a small obscenity, and were it better for it than here, I hold the man's balls in the palm of my hand."
He cupped his fingers, smiling.
"Or would, if he were a man or had any balls. You see, if the pie is opened, the birds begin to sing, and Varys would not like that. Were I you, I would worry more about the Lannisters and less about the eunuch."
Ned did not need Littlefinger to tell him that. He was thinking back to the day Arya had been found, to the look on the Queen's face when she said, "We have a wolf," so soft and quiet. He was thinking of the boy Micah, of John Arryn's sudden death, of Bran's fall, of old mad Aerys Targaryen dying on the floor of his throne room while his life's blood dried on a gilded blade. "My lady," he said, turning to Catelyn, "there is nothing more you can do here. I want you to return to Winterfell at once. If there was one assassin, there would be others. Whoever ordered Bran's death will learn soon enough that the boy still lives."
"I had hoped to see the girls," Catelyn said. "That would be most unwise," Littlefinger put in. "The Red Keep is full of curious eyes and children talk."
"He speaks truly, my love," Ned told her. He embraced her. "Take Sir Roderick and ride for Winterfell. I will watch over the girls. Go home to our sons and keep them safe."
"As you say, my lord."
Catelyn lifted her face and Ned kissed her. Her maimed fingers clutched against his back with a desperate strength, as if to hold him safe forever in the shelter of her arms.
"Would the lord and lady like the use of a bedchamber?" asked Littlefinger. "I should warn you, Stark, we usually charge for that sort of thing around here." "A moment alone, that's all I ask for," Catelyn said. "Very well." Littlefinger strolled to the door. "Don't be too long. It is past time the Hand and I return to the castle before our absence is noticed."
Catelyn went to him and took his hands in her own. "I will not forget the help you gave me, Peter. When your men came for me, I did not know whether they were taking me to a friend or an enemy. I have found you more than a friend. I found a brother I thought I'd lost." Peter Baelish smiled. "I am desperately sentimental, sweet lady. Best not tell anyone. I've spent years convincing the court that I'm wicked and cruel, and I'd hate to see all that hard work go for naught." Ned believed not a word of that, but he kept his voice polite as he said, "You have my thanks as well, Lord Baelish." "Oh, now there's a treasure," Littlefinger said, exiting. When the door had closed behind him, Ned turned back to his wife. "Once you are home, send word to Helman Talhart and Galbart Glover under my seal. They are to raise 100 bowmen each and fortify Moat Caitlin. 200 determined archers can hold the neck against an army. Instruct Lord Manderley that he is to strengthen and repair all his defences at White Harbour and see that they are well manned. And from this day on, I want a careful watch kept over Theon Greyjoy. If there is war, we shall have sore need of his father's fleet." "War?" The fear was plain on Catelyn's face. "It will not come to that," Ned promised her, praying it was true. He took her in his arms again. "The Lannisters are merciless in the face of weakness, as Aerys Targaryen learned to his sorrow, but they would not dare attack the north without all the power of the realm behind them, and they shall not have that. I must play out this fool's masquerade as if nothing is amiss. Remember why I came here, my love. If I find proof that the Lannisters murdered Jon Arryn—" He felt Catelyn tremble in his arms. Her scarred hands clung to him. "If," she said, "if... what then, my love?" That was the most dangerous part, Ned knew. "All justice flows from the king," he told her. "When I know the truth, I must go to Robert. And pray that he is the man I think he is," he finished silently, "and not the man I fear he has become."
Because he is. I normally don't like the people who are portrayed as the villain characters, but Peter Baelish, he is just too good not to like.
What about Peter Baelish?
I was saying, I don't normally like... Right? He's very cheeky. I normally don't like the villain characters, but Peter Baelish is an exception.
Oh, I love him.
He's
Littlefinger, yeah, he's a great character. He's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
He is so cheeky. He's very, like, I just love that he doesn't even hide that he's in love with Catelyn. He doesn't even hide it. He's just like, "Oh, well, if you're not coming, Lord Stark, I'll just take her away with me." Like, he gives no Fs whatsoever.
For whatever reason, she sees something in you Starks.
For some reason.
Peter Baelish basically acts like how I would picture Snape acting if Harry's parents didn't die.
Right, what is he?
Like, if he happened across them when they were bringing him to Hogwarts or something, like the interaction between them.
Do you Starks have more than snow between your ears?
Mm. Or the fact that he doesn't even, like, hint at Ned. He's just like, "Oh, your wife's in there."
In the brothel.
Yeah.
That I own. You want the room? Usually I charge for that.
I don't know, he's just so great.
He is. I love him. He's so good. And everything he says, you could read it like two ways. Everything he says, you could read it two ways.
I know. He's very much like Tyrion, but kind of Tyrion's moral opposite.
Yeah, like if Tyrion didn't give an F about anything.
He has that same wittiness to him and intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
But Tyrion tends to use that wit to bring about the best in people.
Right, and try to get people
Baelish.
to see
the
light. Whereas he's just like Katie said, he's just trying to get a rise out of everyone.
Exactly.
And get them to act on their emotions and be impulsive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I completely agree with Ned on this one. It's hard to trust him. But, Seems like some shit's about to go down with the Lannisters. The Lannisters you can trust even less.
And now we also know that the crown is severely in debt.
I know.
To the Lannisters.
I love that scene, just kind of how I picture Ned's face when he
finds out all that information. He's just like,
3 million? What? This was not in my contract. I did not know about this.
Like, it's literally... You're literally just setting up the Lannisters to be the bad guy. Like, oh, the whole thing with the wolf and Prince Joffrey, and she's the queen, and now we know that the crown itself is severely in debt to them. Like,
not in debt to just anyone either. The Lannisters.
The Lannisters specifically. And Littlefinger is just like, I just find the coin. I don't like tell you whether or not to use it. I just find it and procure it. I don't tell him whether or not he should use it. That's not my job. Like, oh man. Yeah, he is like Snape at this particular like moment in time with the character. It's like, is he on Cat's side? Is he not? Is he good? Is he bad? What is he doing? He very much plays the Snape role. I feel like you get that sense
a lot faster than Snape, though. Because when you first meet Snape, he's just a bad guy. Just instantly, the first interaction, it's like, this dude isn't good. And then later on, you start to question it.
It's so funny because for me, the first moment I met Snape, it was love at first sight. It's just like, oh, you're going to be my favorite character. I know it.
Okay, then.
It was. And I just knew, like, you're not a bad guy. Just because you are a bad guy doesn't mean you are a bad guy. I knew it.
Is that how you felt about Peter Baelish first time you met him?
No, I thought Peter Baelish was a scumbag the minute I met
him. Was it the brothel?
No, it's his whole interaction with Cat from chapter 1 and all the backstory that Cat gives you about Peter Baelish. Like, the first chapter where you first meet him, I'm like, this guy's a dirtball. I don't trust him. He's skeezy. There's something not right with him. He's a shady mofo. I'm not about that. It's so funny because Ned and Cat are like, oh, you trust Littlefinger, but they're both like, Varys? No. Don't trust that guy. Don't trust Varys at all. And
he's a gossip.
And I'm sitting there like, what?
Everyone has that one person that you don't tell anything that you wouldn't want everyone to hear too.
Like, I remember reading the book the first time and going through this again. I'm like, Varys just spills everyone's tea. He's not doing anything like necessarily really bad. He's just telling on everybody. Like, what's so bad about that? I don't know. I think Littlefinger is more suspicious.
What's bad about the gossip in the office? Like, you know.
You just know not to tell that person. Yeah, but you also should know, just don't tell that person stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
When did I know I was a Slytherin? Ooh. Yeah, I think Martin really does try to make Varys very creepy on the surface, for sure. I think the first time you meet him, it's very much supposed to be like, okay.
I don't know if I was really creeped out by him per se, but he was very much like a standout character where I knew to keep my eye on him, but I wasn't quite sure how to feel about him.
He didn't really creep me out, but... He didn't creep me out either, but I remember being introduced to Varys, and you find out he's a eunuch, and he wears all this powder, and he smells flowery, and he knows all the secrets and stuff. I'm like, okay, interesting. All right.
I do have to take a moment, though, to take a step back and unleash some hate on Sansa. Gotta do it every chapter. Sansa blames Arya for what happened.
Oh, I know! That was bull! It's not Arya's
Arya. Nymeria should have died. No, you could have stopped it all.
How about no wolves? Ooh. How about no wolves should have died if you'd have just opened your mouth and said something?
Yes.
How about if you were just brave enough to be like, yo, Joffrey was being a POS?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying. Poor Arya. No wonder she's all broody.
I would be too.
And Sansa's like crying every night. Oh, Arya, it's all your fault. It's so bad. Shut up. You made your bed.
I know, she's just like, oh, poor wolf. Meanwhile, Micah just chopped in half. Micah chopped in half.
Like literally chopped in half.
Yeah.
Like, Arya just lost her close friend.
And technically lost her wolf.
Yeah, because her wolf
still
ran
alive.
away. Right.
As far as we know, but she's not there.
So Arya's just not allowed to feel bad because Sansa's day was ruined and her wolf died? Like, come on. Arya lost her wolf too. She lost her friend. And her sister hates her. And her dad killed her sister's wolf. Like, come on. Arya probably already feels like crap.
Yeah, 100%.
And Ned feels like crap. He didn't want to kill it. He's even like...
Especially now that he knows that the only reason Bran is alive is because of his wolf.
Of his wolf.
I was like, maybe I should have let her live.
Maybe I should have just set her free and just told her to get. Yeah.
Just like stole someone's fur coat. Be like, here you go, just fucking take it, go, quick.
Which kind of maybe lends credence to the idea of prophecy, fate, etc. Kind of influencing the story, because now he's starting to think that there's a reason why they all got the wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the very beginning of the story, Cat was like, it's a sign, it's a thing, it was a dire wolf with the antler, it's a sign, it's a thing. And Ned was like, whatever, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's starting to get on the bandwagon of maybe it meant something. Maybe this wasn't an accident. Jon said, and it's very interesting that it's Jon who said, these were meant for us.
Yes, it is.
Foreshadowing?
Perhaps.
Maybe?
Or maybe just a coincidence. Maybe he just really wanted a direwolf, so
but
he was saying what he could say.
He said what he could say, but he didn't have one at that point. He didn't think he was going to get one.
No, but maybe he was hoping, like, maybe, Rob doesn't want his, or Sansa won't like it.
Or maybe
it's
Rickon's
too dirty,
too young.
It's too furry, yeah. Can't just let them go. Someone's got to take care of them. Don't worry.
To answer Katie's question, when did I know I was a Slytherin?
I think you're only a Slytherin because you want to be with Snape. So I think as soon as you were attracted to Snape, that's when you just decided.
No.
I would be a Slytherin just so I could be closer to Snape.
No, it has nothing to do with that. Doesn't, believe it or not. It actually does not.
I don't believe it, but go on.
It doesn't.
I'm also thinking, are there any snake house sigils within
Game of
Westeros?
Thrones?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think the
There's
closest thing we have
Kraken, Flayed Man, Dragon, Wolf. We got those.
Them.
Yeah.
All right. Dragon, wolf, lion,
Fish.
flayed man, fish, kraken, sun,
Yep.
a flower, Martell.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, that's Tyrell. Martell is the sun. Tyrell is the flower.
Yeah. I always get them
I
confused,
know.
too. It's
It
alright.
sounds so much alike. The stag. The Frey is like the two towers thing or something. Isn't it like
they're
the
like
two
towers.
like castles or
Mhm.
whatever?
Yeah, I don't think there's any snakes.
I don't think so either.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? There's no snakes.
I don't know.
The bear.
I was thinking. Yes, Molmont. I wonder if there are any house sigils on the other side of the sea. Like over by the Dothraki.
I don't think so, because their society doesn't function that way. They're not a feudal they're not a feudal system.
They're not, but I don't know.
No
Just a thought.
snakes in the story either?
Oh, well, there's snakes. I can't say anything about snakes. They're snakes.
I was going to ask, before I answered that question, I was going to say, do you mean literal snakes or figurative snakes?
There's Both.
Yeah, there are.
Yes.
Yeah, there are. There are snakes in the story.
We will see snakes. Serpents all around. And we're not just talking about figurative snakes. Because there's a lot of those in King's Landing.
As we can see.
Yes.
Literal. Yes,
Yes.
we will see literal snakes. No naginis, but we will see snakes. No,
Maybe later on.
no snakes popping out of a woman's head. Out of a dead
Maybe
body.
that's how George is going to end it. It's going to be like a Dune crossover. The dragons are going to fly down and just sandworms come out and eat the dragons.
Oh dear God. House Martell would finally win.
God Emperor takes over Westeros.
The God Emperor! Ruler of the entire universe.
Yes, the sand penis.
The Sandworm Man.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to read that book.
I wonder who let that cover go. I just don't know.
It was 1981!
I don't care. They knew what was what.
Well,
then.
yeah. Oh, you want to see the paperback cover?
Hey, Alistair.
I'll show you the paperback cover. And you can tell me what you think. Sorry, I was looking at houses.
Oh. Without me? What the heck?
I was just like perusing for 2 seconds. Hang on.
Just leave me Bailey when you leave.
Wow, why are you like this?
Just
Oh my God,
kidding.
where's the cover? I just want to find
You can leave me Jackson too. Just Google image it.
I did, but Google just got stuck. Hang on.
Wait, is it different?
The paperback cover?
We're doing good, Alistair. How you been? Yeah.
Yeah, the cover's different.
Oh, okay. That's creepier in a way, but less phallic.
How is that less phallic?
Because there's more contrast in between it, so it doesn't look like,
Whatever.
I mean, it still looks phallic, just less.
Katie says that the sandworms make her think of Tremors.
Oh, I used to love that movie with Kevin Bacon. Yeah.
I never saw it.
What?
Yep.
That was such an awesome movie.
Are the sandworms like the monsters in Tremors?
It was one of those movies when I was a kid, I really just enjoyed the movie. And then I watched it again when I was older. And I love it just in the same way that you like Godzilla. Like, everything looks so bad, it's good.
Some stuff in Godzilla
It's
looks
just-
really good. Wow. Don't even.
The newer ones. You know what I mean.
Okay, yeah, I do know what you mean.
Do I need to bring up the Godzilla and Kong fight with a tree?
Through the tree?
Yeah.
Eat your vegetables!